All right, you guys, we are super stoked because we have for you guys Brennan Wertz. He just won not even a week ago, Gravel National Champs. How are you feeling?
Yeah, pretty amazing. Been definitely a surreal experience and really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of work went into it, so it's cool to see that and see it pay off. And yeah, I'm sure we'll get to it later, but yeah, went into it without the most confidence, so it was nice to kind of get a little bit of a boost and it's been a bit of a rough month. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
nice to feel that the momentum is kind of shifting and heading in a
Yay.
more positive direction.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, before we get too deep into it and the listeners learn all the nuggets about you and or we reveal truth or a lie, our listeners know the routine. Why don't you break down your two truths and a lie or like however you want to order them? So try and stump me for me and
Mhm.
I'll take a guess at which one's the lie.
Um, My least favorite terrain to train on are long mountain climbs.
Okay.
I'm fluent in German,
Oh.
and my first ever bike race was downhill mountain bike event
Oh.
with big 20, 30 foot jumps.
Oh my gosh. I feel like you just made like a face that makes me think that maybe 20 to 30 foot jumps kind of seemed like it might have been a stretch. Okay. So I feel like you could certainly be fluent in German because you are certainly traveling to Europe quite a bit. I don't know about the terrain, long mountain climbs. That's like I mean, if you're hanging out with Sally Foo, that's like maybe your jam too. So who knows? I have to say, I'm gonna think the last one is a lie because I don't recall us ever talking about the downhill mountain biking, especially the jumping. So I'm gonna lean with that one, but don't tell me the answer. Um, why don't you, and potentially without revealing any of your truths or lies, but take us back just a little bit and like what got you excited about biking?
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Growing up in an area where cycling is just such a big part of the culture, I think has always been like it's always something you see people doing. I grew
Mhm.
up in Northern California. There's a lot of cycling. It's where mountain biking was invented. There's a rich cultural heritage surrounding cycling, and yeah, it was always something that I was surrounded by to a degree and
Mhm.
really enjoyed. But yeah, all through high school and college was rowing, so that was my main focus. But towards the latter portion of that, I got just had more injuries and was using cycling as cross training, and also did a lot of indoor stationary bike training, and spent one summer uh, yeah, doing an internship and kind of took the summer off from training. And when I did that, I had a bike with me and yeah, got to do some bike packing and some cool traveling and didn't have a power meter, didn't have a heart rate monitor, didn't have a Garmin, had like really nothing, just a bike, strapped some bags to it and went on
Mhm.
some cool bike packing trips. And yeah, wasn't training, wasn't doing anything specific, was just really enjoying it. And so that was kind of actually the angle that I came into cycling was
Mhm.
non-competitively.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's kind of been my background with it. And ever since then, just enjoyed it and did some work in the bike industry. I was working as a bike mechanic and
Yeah.
um, just yeah, I loved everything about it. I love the tech. I love the equipment. I love how yeah, the mechanics of how everything works. I find fascinating, and then yeah, the training, the actual act of riding a bike, I find to be incredibly enjoyable. So
That's
yeah, it kind
great.
of checks all the boxes.
When was your first race that you entered into?
Pass.
What's that? You
Pass
passed?
on the question.
That's the question. Okay, pass. Okay.
My first
Well,
gravel race was in we'll do gravel. My first gravel race was 2021. No, I did one gravel race right before the pandemic or a bit
okay.
before the pandemic in Tahoe
Yeah.
and had no idea what this whole
Mm.
gravel thing was, had never ridden a gravel bike. I was working in a bike shop and one of my coworkers was going to go and do the race and he was like, "Hey, you want to come?" And we just kind of went up to Tahoe and camped and borrowed some demo bikes from the shop and I remember I had like 60 psi in the tires and I had
Wow.
inner tubes and had really no idea what I was doing, and
Yeah.
bombed down these crazy descents in Tahoe on this bike. And there were like these little cliff drops and stuff that I didn't see coming, and
Wow.
thought I was going to completely die and then land. And like, wow, these bikes, this is
Yeah.
pretty cool. Like you can do
Yeah.
quite a lot on this. Yeah. And then from there, it was just, yeah, kind of got hooked pretty quickly
That's
and took
awesome.
off.
And that was a gravel race in Tahoe?
Yeah.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
the trucky.
Trucky
Yeah.
gravel
Hmm.
something. Yeah.
Awesome. That one's still, it's still kicking. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, having just crushed nationals, we definitely want to talk about that. That's what everybody's hyped to learn more about. So do you want to share a little bit of what your lead up to gravel nationals was like, whether that's from a training lens, from like your preparation? What was that like leading up to nationals?
Yeah, certainly far from normal and also far from ideal, I would say. I was in Colorado ahead of Steamboat. I was in Boulder, and then for an little kind of mini altitude
Mm,
training block, and then went to Steamboat before the Steamboat gravel race, which was a big target of mine, and came down with a pretty nasty case of COVID,
mm,
and um was off the bike for like at least 10 days, like pretty destroyed by it. And it just kept lingering. Like it really, like I never was getting like the feeling it was turning around. And I mean,
mm,
the sickness improved, but then I just had this fatigue, and I could get through day-to-day normal life without riding just fine, but my legs would ache and I just felt fatigued riding, and I
mm,
just, yeah, didn't feel like myself at all on the bike. And to be honest, I'm still having a degree of that. Like it's definitely still lingering.
mhm,
But I think the longest ride I did in the last 3 or 4 weeks was a 3.5 hour ride.
mm,
So definitely, normally I'm doing 5, 6 hour rides coming into some of these bigger races. So yeah, went in. Yeah, I had to skip Steamboat, had to skip Gravel Worlds in Nebraska the weekend
mm,
after. So that was a big bummer, letting those
mhm,
two go. And my coach and I had kind of made the call that it wasn't like unsafe to go and race nationals. Like my body was kind of up for it, and it
mhm,
wasn't gonna set me back and cause kind of, massive setbacks and damage, but
mhm,
I probably was going to suffer.
mm,
But that I could go. And so we were like, all
mhm.
right, like it's a good course for me. I would say it was my main target for the year. Like of all the races that I was attending, it was the one that I had the biggest circle around on the calendar.
Mhm.
So yeah, we went for it, but I went in just really low confidence, not super excited,
Mhm.
and just kind of like, oh man, is this the right decision? I don't know, kind of just second guessing a lot of things. But and to be honest, suffered through the whole race too. Kept getting dropped, kept getting these gaps opening, and just kept clawing my way back, and couldn't quite match these sharper accelerations of the other riders, but also just noticed like, yeah, but I mean, they keep getting these little gaps, but then I keep being able to come back, and I just had to be really conservative and monitor my effort, and um, yeah, managed to yeah, get through it. So
Wow, amazing. And I mean, my next question was, how did you balance intensity and recovery during your training? So it sounds like,
all recovery.
yeah, big focus on recovery there.
Yeah.
How did, again, jumping kind of like fast forwarding to post nationals, like having had COVID, looking at your training, how your body was responding, thinking, okay, we can do this, but it's probably going to be a bit of a suffer fest. How did your body then respond like post race?
Um, yeah, I'm still feeling pretty,
Yeah.
yeah, just not destroyed, but not 100%. And I think
Hmm.
that's due to a couple different factors. I also been pretty busy this week, and I'm
Yeah.
getting ready to go out on a pretty long trip
Mm-hmm.
for another couple races in Europe. So I have a lot going on, and I've been trying to also take advantage of the moment and enjoy it, and
Hmm.
yeah, do some podcasts and some interviews and stuff. So it's been for sure a very busy week, and
Nice.
haven't been sleeping kind of my normal amount, and
Yeah.
all of that. So yeah, still feeling it. Haven't really got any big proper training rides in, just kind
Hmm.
of more endurance stuff, and um yeah, hopefully next week, once I get over to Spain, things will settle down a little bit and can
Hmm.
kind of get back into a groove. But
Nice.
right now, definitely still still
Yeah.
feeling it.
Yeah, man. And do you feel like more so than races in the past? Like how you would
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
post?
yeah.
Yeah.
Normally maybe a race like Unbound in day-to-day life, you feel that for 4 or 5 days, maybe a week. Like the following weekend, you're still kind of sore. Maybe
Hmm.
in training, you're going to be sore for maybe 2 weeks, or kind of not sore, but governed a little bit. But normally that's just like I feel day-to-day life, 2 days kind of sore and stiff, maybe an
Hmm.
extra day if there's like a long airplane flight involved or something. But normally 3 or 4 days later, I'm kind of back to training hard and back in the groove.
Yeah.
So it's
Wow.
definitely, yeah, lingering a little longer.
Yes. Yeah. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with nationals and maybe even gravel, do you want to give the listeners a little explanation on the course, maybe terrain, distance, how long you were out there for, so they have an
Mhm.
idea of when we start talking about a prep and during and all that stuff, what we're
Yeah,
referencing?
yeah, yeah. So it was Western Nebraska, about 3 hours north of Denver, and kind of flatter rolling terrain, not super long, punchy climb or like long sustained climbs,
Hmm.
and just these constant kind of rollers and long exposed dirt farm roads. So basically, yeah, gravel racing, just yeah, dirt farm road racing on bikes that resemble a road bike but have bigger tires and more tire clearance.
Mm.
The race was 131 miles,
Mm.
and it took us just under 6 hours. I think my time was
Wow.
about 5:50.
Wow.
So yeah, more or less a 6 hour effort. Pretty hot. I think at the end of the day, it was, I don't know, 80 or 90 or something. Like it definitely got up
Yeah.
there. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the
Awesome.
terrain and conditions.
Amazing. So, having been kind of how you were feeling and then prepping for something like this, how are you? I mean, I know with COVID, some people lose that sense of taste and smell too, and so their appetite can go down a bit, but how are you feeling about your like diet leading up to nationals? Like, were you able to get in, do you feel like enough nutrition like you would normally in prep for a race? Or yeah, what was that like?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think that I had my taste and smell the whole time.
Nice.
I wouldn't say that I struggled with that.
That's good.
Yeah, I think I always look at my normal day-to-day nutrition and sleep as kind of the biggest, yeah, in the things that are impacting my day-to-day performance the most and are
Hmm.
simple but very valuable. Yeah, places to put focus.
Yeah, yeah. And what would like your pre-race day dinner, what would something like that normally look like for you?
Usually very carb heavy. Really go to is just pasta, red sauce, some ground beef, something like that. Maybe
Yeah.
usually no vegetables, no salad or anything. Just kind of
Hmm.
simple, plain pasta, something like that. Kind of really even this week at nationals, more or less ate the same thing
Yeah.
in different variations. Like we had pasta with butter and salmon, and we had pasta with red sauce twice with ground beef, and not a ton of vegetables, just very carb heavy with a bit of protein.
Nice.
Pancakes and oatmeal for breakfast, and some fruit, like simple
Yeah.
stuff.
Topping off that muscle glycogen. That's what you want to do. That's
Hmm.
good. Okay.
Hmm.
And then for the temperatures and that distance, are you increasing like fluid intake or sodium intentionally in preparation for something like that?
Yeah, yeah, a bit of both. So I'm working with Osmo for nutrition. They're my nutrition sponsor, and they take care of all my hydration. And definitely when it's hot like that coming into the race, I'm utilizing their preload. So they have this preload product that's very high sodium. So yeah, the day or two leading into the event, just kind of sipping on that from time to time, more so in the evening before the race and morning of, and just trying to generally consume more fluids at any given time. If I'm sitting on the couch or reading or something, and I'll just try to make sure I always have a bottle
Nice.
nearby.
Yeah.
And then in the
Smart.
race, the same. Yeah, just I mean, it becomes a bit tactical as well.
Hmm.
You can carry more water, but then you're carrying more weight as well. There's a disadvantage. I'm
Hmm.
a larger than average cyclist. I go through more fluid than the
Mm.
average cyclist, but I also am up against an already a weight penalty. So
Mm.
a lot of these races, they have these sort of neutral feed zones throughout the course where you can stop and service yourself. You can
Mm.
refill your own bottles, but we only had one feed zone on course where we could have private support that was handing us musette bags or bottles. So I took everything that I knew I needed to get me to that mile 90 private aid
Yeah.
station. And then from there, took off my hydration pack, took the two empty 1 liter bottles off of my bike, and just took two more bottles and then an
Wow.
additional bottle to dump on myself,
Hmm.
and then had a lot less to carry for the remaining 40 miles.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive to think about that, to have 100, you said 131-mile course, and the only opportunity to get water is 90 miles in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, put that into perspective for some of our folks who have not done a race that long. It like seems like a lot. So fluid wise, carrying for 90 miles, like what amount of fluid were you targeting to get you through 90 miles?
4 liters is sort of the magic
Hmm.
number I see as like the maximum that it makes sense to take. When you're taking
Hmm.
more than that, you're really carrying a lot of extra weight and a lot of it on your
Hmm.
back.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I don't usually ever do a race with more than that. This time I had 4 liters to drink, and then I had an additional dumping bottle with ice in it to start.
Hmm.
So I carried that for the first maybe 45 minutes, and then as the pace started to intensify and some of the first attacks were really starting to go, I used that to dump on myself, and that was before I had the sensation that I was overheating or getting hot even. Like the
Yeah.
this was at this point still 7:30 in the morning, pretty early in the
Hmm.
day. It wasn't scorching hot yet, but just preempting that and knowing that there were also climbs coming where I didn't want to be carrying the extra weight. So I would take
Yeah.
the bottle, dump it on myself, and cool myself down a little bit. So that's not something that I normally am doing, but because this course was more flat to rolling as far as terrain goes, I felt that I could afford to take a little bit of a weight penalty, knowing that especially with my current condition, if I overheated, that I could really come apart and that it
Yeah.
could be then a pretty long slog back to the finish. So I was really
Hmm.
trying to avoid that at all
Yeah.
costs.
Yeah. I think that's really smart to preemptive cool like that.
Hmm.
With the fluids and the 4 liters and talking about tactics too, and I'm sure it's different for every race, but in something like nationals, do you find like sipping and hydrating from the bladder versus the bottle is more convenient or easier for you at certain like technical sections or?
Yeah, the hydration pack is definitely easier to drink from because you
Mhm.
don't have to fumble around taking the bottle out and putting it back into the bottle cage on the bike.
Mhm.
I have an insulated hydration pack sleeve that I
Mm.
use, and that keeps the water cool a little bit longer than the bottles do. So I also try to drink the bottles first
Mm.
while they're cool, knowing that the sleeve and the pack will stay a little bit cooler a bit longer.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, and also the bottles have a tendency. I mean, I don't really have this issue of the bottles ejecting. I have
Mm.
really strong bottle cages that do an awesome job
Yeah.
from this company Arundel. They have like an extra band on them that
Oh,
pulls the
nice. Yeah.
bottles super tight, but that's always a risk that you hit a pothole or something in one of the bottles, especially when they're 1 liter bottles that are that much
Yeah.
heavier that
Yeah.
they eject out of the frame. So yeah, I usually try to drink the bottles down first at any moment that I can safely drink from them.
Hmm.
Um, and this time around, I mean, it's always a little bit different, but this time around, I did a combination where I had the Osmo hydration. So the way it works with Osmo is they have like a hydration product that's more or less purely electrolytes, and then they
Hmm.
have their fuel carbohydrate based product. And I utilized the fuel and the hydration in the pack
Hmm.
because I knew that it would stay a bit cooler. And it's just when you have the really high carb drink mix, when it gets super hot in the heat of the day, it just becomes a little bit harder to drink.
Yeah.
So I wanted to keep that cooler longer. and give me a better chance to get that down and into my system.
Nice.
Um, and then in the bottles, I just had the regular hydration.
Hmm.
So then it
Awesome.
was just yeah, a bit of a hybrid, but still making sure I got everything I needed and
Hmm.
could put a little more fuel in the pack and then a little less in the bottles so that it evened out in the end.
Awesome. That's great. And from a like a target lens, we talked about like fluids for liters. Do you try and target a certain amount of carbs, like up until that 90-mile point or per hour, or how are you looking at that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I have maybe a little bit of a simple, kind of more old school style of I just put as much as I can in my pockets. I do a little bit of math and think like, okay, if I eat all this, I'll be in a good spot.
Yeah.
And I try to just eat as consistently as I can whenever
Hmm.
there's an opportunity and drink as often as I can. And yeah, I'm getting a lot of calories and carbs from the drink mix, and then I'm supplementing that with different gels and chews.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, again, like I burn through that stuff faster than
Yeah.
most, and so I just my pockets. If you see me at the start of the race, you might look and say like, "What the heck does he have in there?" Like, damn, so you really gonna eat all that? But when it's a good race and I'm feeling good
Yeah.
and everything is going as planned,
Hmm.
I usually know because I'm getting through that stuff. I'm not having
Hmm.
any issues. I'm motivated. I'm like mentally tuned in. And then I get
Hmm.
to the end of the race and I finish with nothing in my pockets. And then I know, okay, I did my job. I did it. I
Yeah.
did it well. And that was
Nice.
more or less what happened on Sunday.
Wow. Great. And with the Osmo Fuel product, do you do the regular or do you the caffeinated or a mix?
A mix but for the most part, the regular. I like to have more control over the caffeine with gels. So I use the different caffeinated gels.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to have the fluid more just kind of consistent because
Hmm.
then I can know, okay, maybe my bottles get switched around or, um, maybe I end up drinking my hydration pack first and I was thinking I was going to do it in the other order. And then all of a sudden I'm getting too much caffeine at the wrong time. It's easier to control with the gels.
Yeah.
But if I'm say like earlier this year, I raced pro road nationals,
Hmm.
there we had two feed zones per lap on the course. We're getting bottles constantly.
Yeah.
You can be a little bit more selective with the bottles. Then I had kind of more of a mix, and I just had rubber bands on the bottles that had
Hmm.
the caffeine in them, and it was pretty straightforward and
Yeah.
easy to do it like that.
Nice. Amazing. And so during the race, were there any like unexpected, outside of knowing you're going into it having recovering from COVID, but any unexpected challenges or moments where you felt like you really had to adapt quickly?
Yeah, I was thinking of my plan going into it was be super conservative, which I'm not always good at. I definitely
Mhm.
race more with emotion, and when I'm feeling good, I'm pushing harder, and I'm definitely guilty of sometimes not racing the smartest tactically. So I was planning on just being much more tactical than normal and sitting on the group a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But I yeah, I there were a few attacks early on. I kind of let them go, but then I started to get the feeling like, man, these are I don't know, there's some pretty serious guys that we're letting get away right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I went and attacked with I think two other guys, and we bridged up to a few guys that were in front of us, and then we were chasing down the very front group of the race, and the peloton was behind us. And that was not part of the plan. I wasn't planning on going so hard so early,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a group of, by the time we caught the group in front of us, then we had, I don't know, 6 or 7 guys and all kind of strong diesel engine, really powerful riders. And so we all had a similar build, similar
Nice.
power profile. And so we were able to work really well together. So I thought, okay, I'm in good company here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, think more the flip side was there was some unexpected rain overnight, and that actually made a huge difference more in a positive direction for
Mm-hmm.
me, where the course this year was a lot sandier than the year prior, and there was a lot of this really fine powdery moon dust in some sections that made handling the bike pretty difficult. And I was a bit surprised to see so many riders on the start with non-bike tires
Mm-hmm.
and tires that were much larger than mine, but I took a bit of a gamble and went for smaller, faster, slick tires.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact that we got this dusting of rain overnight made some of those sections a lot better. But there
Yeah.
was one key climb on the course where all three of our groups all came back together at the same time at the base of this climb, and then there were all these attacks,
Mm,
and that was probably the sandiest part of the race, and I was really on the back foot there, and
mm,
that was kind of a moment where I was struggling to come through the sand and getting dropped from the front of the race, and had to
mm.
ultimately claw my way back.
Yeah, shoot. Yeah, there's a with a lot those long distance races, it's yeah, the tire choice I think we talked about a little bit before is like always something people are talking about because there's like a perfect tire for each section or like any section of the, it seems like yeah, depending on the race, but you can get away with a mountain bike tire or a mountain bike really well
Mhm.
in some sections and then
Mhm.
a gravel bike in others, right? Okay. Let's see. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but the management of energy levels and being strategic with your pacing, I think we kind of answered that question. Um, was there, I feel like the answer is going to be yes, but a critical moment for in the race for you? And if so, how did you handle it?
Yeah, coming out of that last feed zone, or the one feed zone where we got support that I mentioned earlier at mile 90,
Hmm.
from that point on, I knew there were kind of three main key points between the finish, kind of like separating me from the finish or potential places where I could get dropped.
Hmm.
And the first one was a paved climb that turned to dirt at the top. Then there was this twisty, sandy double track section along this river. And then there was this last climb, which is where the race really exploded last year. And
Hmm.
so I knew like, okay, I came out of the feed zone. I refreshed my bottles. I had this dump bottle. I took the pack off. I was feeling way cooler and better, and started to a little bit think like, oh, maybe I'm still in the race. Like we just dropped quite a few guys. Like
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
group is getting smaller and smaller, and I'm still here, huh?
Hmm.
Um, but I was thinking, okay, I have to make it through like each of these kind of checkpoints. Like, can I make it over the first climb? Then can I make it through
Hmm.
the double track? And then ultimately, can I make it over this last climb? So I played it a bit tactically on the last climb. I rode actually hard at the bottom to come around to get to the front and sort of slow the pace down almost a little bit,
Hmm.
or just be in control and be up near the front so that if people were to attack, I could
Hmm.
afford to fall back a little bit through the group and not have to
Hmm.
do this huge power spike.
Hmm.
Um, Made it over that climb. Thought, oh, okay, yeah, I'm still here. Nice, okay. The double track, because of the rain, was packed quite a bit firmer, so that
Hmm.
went through that like really no problem.
Nice.
And then it was like, man, okay, now it's just like last year, like pretty decent sized group coming into this last really steep, punchy climb.
Mm.
I guess we just see what happens. Like it's everyone, like there's no tactic. It's just go as hard as you can up this climb, and
Hmm.
you just sort of see who's there at the top, and got gapped slightly, but was with another two guys that were from that first early move of the day, these sort of big diesel guys, and super strong, super motivated guys. And we didn't even, it wasn't even a question. Like there was no, hey, like let's go get them, let's pull them back. It
Hmm.
was just like immediately snapped into action. And we started rotating and quickly brought back the gap that the front guys had put on us. And then from there, we all kind of looked at each other like, oh, dang, like now there's really nothing between us and the finish line. Like I guess we're all just going to be contesting this. And there's a group of 10 of us. And okay, I guess we might have a 10-person sprint. That'll be pretty wild.
That's cool. Amazing. Well, yeah, the if people can, I think some people can watch a little bit of the finish line footage is out there, but the whole race coverage I haven't seen much out there.
Yeah,
But
there's
yeah,
not much, unfortunately.
yeah,
Um,
but definitely a cool yeah, fun finish. It made me think of was it Unbound where a bunch of women came in at the sprint finish as well.
yeah,
Which was cool to yeah, it's just cool to see. So yeah, amazing. And what do you when you finish a race like that? Well, out like in general, when you finish a race, what are you doing from a nutrition hydration lens thereafter? Do you have zero appetite post or what's kind of your
no,
routine?
usually I could eat or drink something kind of right away. I mean, the main
That's
thing I
good.
always want after a race like this is just cold water. Like, there's really nothing better than just plain cold water. I think I probably drank 4 or 5 bottles of just plain cold water. And they had that at the finish. That happened to be like the thing that I was getting the most of, that was easily available. And it just like nothing really tastes better at that point.
Yeah.
A cold Coke sometimes is nice, but Yeah, I think with these 1 day races, it's not like it's a stage race. You're not thinking
Mhm.
already immediately, okay, I need to be 100% thinking about tomorrow already and recovering and doing
Mhm.
everything perfectly. You're also chatting with your peers, you're enjoying it, you're celebrating,
Yeah.
or you're doing some interview or something. So yeah, for me, it was definitely just cool, ice cold water was what I went for.
Mhm.
Um, After training, when I'm at home, it's a little bit different. I'm definitely more specific and more focused and trying to get some carbs in right away and some recovery shake and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But yeah, after the race, it's kind of just whatever you can get.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's something to be said for that too. Like when you put out such a high effort and talking about like managing core temperature, I mean, there's a lot of like decreased blood flow to the gut. And if we can get something cool in there and start that internal cooling, I think you can, yeah, start bringing blood flow back to the gut too. When you're like in the regular day to day, are you a chocolate osmo recovery or are you a vanilla osmo recovery person?
More chocolate. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say I do more chocolate.
Their chocolate is very good. I will have to back you on that one. I have used their vanilla actually in making homemade like granola protein bars or like date bites, and that's very good as well. Okay, so we covered kind of recovery. We did touch a little bit on how you're still feeling like you're recovering a bit. And what are we like 7 days out now? 6 days out from the race?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so that would make sense. Okay, so now we got to talk about gear. We had some listener questions. We touched a little bit on tire choice. What was your tire choice? You said they were a little slicker. What's your go-to tire for that race day?
Yeah, so I ride for Renee Hurst tires, and I rode there. It's called the Snoqualmie Pass. It's a 44 millimeter slick tire, and they have different casing. So I use the endurance casing for this
Hmm.
one, and that's kind of for me the Goldilocks blend of it's it's their endurance casing. It's strong, it's durable, but it's not their thickest casing. They have an endurance plus that's even thicker. So this is for like a course like this where it's more sand and kind of smoother gravel and fast. There's not so many big rocks where you have this higher risk of a puncture at something like Unbound or a mountain bike trail section with big rocks where you have more risks of punctures or issues. So yeah, that was kind of a nice blend for me. Last year I raced the size down, so I did the 38 slick in the same endurance casing from Renee Hurst.
Hmm.
Um, but they're crazy fast. I mean, really, you have to be a little careful in some of the corners or when it's loose and sandy.
Hmm.
I mean, it is a slick tire after all, but
Yeah.
when you point that thing down some of these fast descents or like the finish in this race here was a 1 or 2K false flat downhill on
Mm.
pavement into a hard left corner and then 150 meters to the finish line. Like for a finish like that, it's really ideal. So I
Yeah.
definitely optimized my setup much more for the last 2K of the race than for the entire
Awesome.
rest of it. But I
Yeah.
do think I would say that it was still the optimal choice for at least 80 to 90% of the course because a lot of it is just this fast rolling sort of smooth gravel,
Hmm.
not particularly twisty, a lot of 90-degree corners and just the typical grid of Midwestern farm roads where you're not going around so many corners.
Yeah. Wow. Is and I know the tire conversation is such a big conversation. Myself personally coming from a mountain bike world and being very much used to the big knobby tires, do you like there's a noticeable difference, like you're saying, when you go from like a knobby to a smooth slick in terms of rolling resistance and speed. Like you notice that when you do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the volume. I mean, I think, yeah, there's all sorts of different literature and science out there, and what's faster and rolling resistance. And I kind of ride what I'm riding, and I train on different tires, and I play around with
Yeah.
it. And I'm not in a lab. I'm not testing things on a roller drum. I'm not looking so much at that. It's kind of just, but like the Renee Hurst slicks. I mean, you get on them, and I think most people who would go out and ride them you start pedaling and you pretty quickly feel you're like, whoa, okay, this
Mhm.
is this is different. Like this is pretty seriously fast.
Oh, that's cool. That's great.
Um,
And do you do are you Orange Shield sponsored or
yeah,
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 nice.
yeah.
Okay.
Orange still in the tires. That's
Yeah.
one of those things that you you really need. I mean, you don't think about it until you really need it, but it's always in there. It's always got my back. I had
Yeah.
zero issues at this race. I mean, just, thanks to them and their
Hmm.
amazing product. I use their standard product, their standard
Nice.
sealant. And yeah, it's just the stuff works. Like it's one of those
Yeah.
things you just don't even really need. You don't even really need to say much more than, and then it just
Hmm.
works. It does its job, and
Yeah.
if you get a huge cut, you can still. It's always amazing. Like put a couple plugs in there, and
Mm.
you think this cut you need to put a tube in or something. You hit a sharp piece of glass or something training, and
Hmm.
you're like, no, the stuff works. It seals it. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the technology is very cool. Okay, what's one piece of gear you consider essential for gravel racing that others might overlook?
Mm, that others might overlook. I would say a good chain lube. I think
Mm,
I mean, it's not I would say, yeah, amongst my peers, everyone has something good on their chain. Like it's not,
mm,
but I would say for the masses, that's something where people could really probably benefit a lot from. I use
mm-hmm,
this product from Ceramic Speed. They have this
mm,
UFO wax chain
mm,
lube, and
mm-hmm,
I would say it's the closest thing you can get to the benefits of waxing your chain without the hassle of waxing your chain. So you
mm,
just trip it on like a regular lubricant. They have their own
mm-hmm,
cleaning product that's
mm.
biodegradable and works super well.
Nice.
And it's just simple. It works great. And then for very specific races, they have these pre-optimized kind of pre-waxed treated chains. So I
Mm-hmm,
actually use one of those for nationals, but
mm-hmm,
normally I'm just using their regular drip on
mm-hmm.
UFO chain lube, and I've been using that for years, and it's the
Nice.
stuff just it works,
Yeah.
especially in these really dusty conditions because it's
Mm-hmm,
not super liquidy.
mm,
So it doesn't pick up a lot of grit and grime. The
mm-hmm.
chain stays clean and quiet, and yeah, when you're out there for 6 to 10 hours and you don't have to listen to a noisy drivetrain, it's pretty nice.
Yes. I remember seeing clips from, I think it was Unbound. People were maybe when it was the really muddy year, but they were like lubing their chain like mid race. Is that something
Yeah,
you've had to do?
I've never had to do that.
Okay.
No. Yeah. Yeah,
Seems
and
like it'd
even
be
that
tricky.
the first like in 2022 it was also muddy. It wasn't nearly as muddy as 23, but
Hmm.
there was quite a lot of rain in the back half of the course, and I had
Hmm.
this it's now a commercially available product that people can go out and buy, this wet lube. At the time
Mm.
it wasn't available for sale, but
Oh.
I got one of these first prototype bottles of it for that race, and yeah, people were stopping and power washing their bikes and putting fresh chain lube on and all of this, and I was able to just keep riding. And I mean, at that point, your bike is filthy and caked in mud, and it doesn't sound pretty, but everything
Yeah.
is still running as it should and is smooth, and the gears are shifting and everything is still
Yeah.
working. So
Yeah.
it's a
Pretty
big advantage.
incredible, the technology. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking back at the race itself, is there anything like thinking now that you would have done differently, whether during the race or potentially in preparation for the race itself?
I still probably wouldn't have gotten COVID. I think that would
We
have been
can't
nice
control
to not have to go
that.
through that.
Yeah, shoot.
Physically and mentally.
Yeah.
Definitely a bit stressful as well.
Yeah.
Um, no, honestly, I don't think so. I'm pretty happy with that one, how it all went. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, it's a good result, but um, I think the thing that I'm happiest with too is just the managing of it all and the tactics and really being smart and conservative and
Hmm.
um, yeah, I think
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like given what was available to me as far as matches to burn that my body had to offer, I used every single one and I used it very wisely. And my
Hmm.
match book was maybe 50% of what it normally is, but I was still able to convert the fewer matches into the same
Yeah.
goal result in the end. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
I feel like it
Yeah.
was very much in part due to just yeah, playing it smart and doing all the right things, even though I was kind of up against it.
Yeah. Does it make you like look at upcoming races differently from a pacing strategy lens?
A little bit. I mean, I think I definitely feel that people definitely look at me. I mean, I'm also hard to miss. Like I'm not sneaking through in the group. People are
Hmm.
definitely aware of where I am, and I'm not
Hmm.
someone who's, yeah, able to just like kind of aimlessly ride off the front and be
Hmm.
given this long leash and just sort of let go.
Hmm.
Um, I think having this jersey on will definitely make that even harder. Like people are definitely going to be. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm big to begin with, and then you add this big loud stars and stripes jersey on top of that, and you're
Hmm.
definitely very easy to spot. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think my physical condition hasn't changed. Like I'm still recovering. I'm still
Yeah.
not anywhere near top condition. So
Hmm.
I think I have to just keep being conservative and yeah, looking after myself and
Hmm.
try to just enjoy the next few weeks, get through the end of the season, and hopefully finish off strong. But um, yeah, with this, I mean, it also takes some pressure off too. It makes you
Yeah.
feel like the season has been a big success, even with all of these different setbacks and
Yeah.
challenges that I've faced over this year and last year, and yeah, so also trying to just take a moment and enjoy it and appreciate it, and um,
That's
yeah.
great. Amazing. Okay, what advice would you give to someone looking to compete in their very first gravel race?
Just eat, really like always be eating or drinking.
Yeah.
It's a to a degree, it's just like an eating contest on a bike. It's really,
Hmm.
you need to be able to keep pushing and keep riding. You need to keep putting fuel in the engine. And yeah, without that, you will certainly pay the price, as I have done myself. I think as most people have, it's easy to do. It's easy to
Hmm.
screw that one up. And so I think the food is super important and finding things that work for you. Like it's
Yeah.
been for me an ongoing journey of discovering new products and different brands and different ways to get the calories and the carbs in. And,
Hmm.
I think one of my long standing go-tos that I often laugh about are these Amy's frozen burritos that I sometimes take for really long rides or
Yeah.
long races. And but it's stuff like that. You have to find what works for you. I mean, I've done long training rides with sweet potatoes and baked sweet potatoes, types of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all a matter of personal preference. You have to
Hmm.
test things out
Hmm.
and you will fail. It will be uncomfortable and unpleasant, but at a
Hmm.
certain point, it'll all start to come together. And when it does,
Yeah.
it's a sweet feeling.
Yeah. I mean, thinking about being able to tolerate a burrito on a ride, I think from a gut training lens certainly prepares you to take down a bunch of sports nutrition products when you're racing, right? Because I think burritos got protein and fiber and fats and you got to
Hmm.
chew it. And yeah, so
Hmm.
that's like a gut training potentially like technique that, you've been doing all this time, maybe not unknowingly.
Right.
Okay. So how important is the community in the gravel racing and what role has that played in your journey as a gravel cyclist?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, I think one of my favorite things in sport in general is when you see someone win and you see the people around them be just genuinely happy for them,
Hmm.
like this sort of feeling like, if it couldn't be me, I'm happy that it's them.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really strong in gravel. And I think that's really
Yeah.
cool. And for me, that's always something that's a big goal of mine. Like if
Mm.
I don't win all that often. I'm not the type of rider that's like a Keegan Swenson who's winning all the time. Um, but it was really special to feel celebrated by my
Hmm.
peers when I
Yeah.
did pull this one off. And I think that's super cool. Like it's this, yeah, for me, that really is the spirit of gravel, like celebrating
Hmm.
each other, celebrating the race, celebrating the experience and just enjoying it. Like it is supposed to be fun. It is fun. Like, make it fun, keep it fun, like
Hmm.
enjoy it too. It's not just a cutthroat competition against people that you dislike or you don't want to be
Hmm.
friends with. Like you can have really good friends and then race them super hard from start to finish and then be really good friends with them again right afterwards. And I think
Yeah.
that's really special.
That's great. Um, okay. I kind of have this other random question that just came to my mind, but I'm thinking about racing. And we talked about nutrition, we talked about hydration, we talked about tactics. And then I do also think there's like components. Well, I think, of course, there's hard work that's behind all of this. And I do think there's little bits of luck too, right?
Mhm.
Um, of those things, nutrition, hydration, tactics, training, obviously. and luck. If you're to break those five things up into a percentage, maybe that's too much to think about. But I'd be curious, like, how would
No,
you
I'd
rank
say
those
just keep
things?
it simple and clean and just do 20% for all of them
Yeah.
because really they're
Yeah.
all equally crucial. Like
Yeah.
without one, yeah, you can mask one by having a little more of the other,
Mm,
but you know, I've had plenty of races where I checked four of those boxes and had bad luck, and you have bad luck and you hit the
right.
wrong rock the wrong way and
Yeah.
it cuts your tire or it
Yeah.
damages something on your bike. And it's
Hmm.
not the fault of the material or the equipment or you.
Right.
It's just there
Yeah.
are big, sharp rocks out there, and certain
Yeah.
races have a lot more of them than others. And
Yeah.
at a certain point, that's out of your control. I mean, we're blazing
Right.
through some of these sections at 40 miles an hour with the cloud of dust that's,
Hmm.
going above our heads. You can't see anything. You're
Right.
riding inches behind somebody's wheel in front of you. You're gonna
Yeah.
hit something at some
Yeah.
point. And so
Yeah.
things like that, somebody crashing in front of you, like there's countless opportunities for luck to really be a
Mm.
huge factor.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's one of those things that without any of those five,
Yeah.
it's hard to really put it together. So
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe I didn't have the best condition and preparation and fitness coming into it, but
Mm.
I do still believe you have. I mean, I've trained hard all year and I've been doing this for a couple of years now, so I do have still like a good base, and I was able to cover up some of that, mitigating that by some, yeah, definitely some good luck,
Mm.
and good tactics and really good fueling and all of these types
Yeah.
of things, and was able to make up for it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Amazing.
that would be kind of my approach.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think that's interesting to think, like, look, because there are so many components, right? Of course, that go into that. So, amazing. Okay, so we're getting close on time, and I want to be mindful of that. What is coming up for you on the calendar
I'm heading off to Spain, geez, tomorrow.
tomorrow?
Gotta pack. There's Sea Otter. The Sea Otter Classic is a big event here in California, but there's a European counterpart. So there's the Sea Otter Europe that's going on in Girona next weekend. There's a gravel race that is a part of that whole festival, and I have a handful of sponsors that'll be there and some friends as well. I've never been to Girona. Dennis, my coach, he's based there, so it'll be
Amazing.
fun to see him. The timing is perfect. I mean, I'm already really looking forward just to giving him a big hug and going out to a nice dinner together
Hmm.
and celebrating a little bit. I think it's an awesome relationship, but it's more or less all virtual. So most of our communication
Yeah.
is all done virtually, and we talk more or less every day. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's always special when you can see people in person. So that'll be really nice. And then after that, heading for a week to Zurich for the Road World Championships. I
Mm.
won't be racing, but I've got a number of friends who are, and some quite close friends too, who are especially in the women's race. So
Cool.
just super pumped. I mean, as big a fan of the sport as anyone, just to be right there on the edge of the road
Yeah,
on the circuit there in Zurich is going to be pretty cool.
that's
And then
awesome.
after that, it's off to Belgium. I'll be racing it at the Gravel World Championships in Flanders, Belgium. And again, I've never been to Belgium, but I
Mm.
love watching the spring classics every spring. And again, as a fan of the sport, just being able to do a world championship event through the hills of Flanders is surely going to be pretty epic. So
Yeah,
really,
amazing.
really fired up about that.
Awesome. That all sounds so exciting. Okay, so we have to circle back to our two truths and a lie to before we let you go here. So, you said your least favorite terrain to train on is the long mountain climbs, that you're fluent in German, and that your first bike race was, oh, is that why you didn't want to answer it? The downhill mountain bike with 20
Yeah.
to 30 foot. That's why you said pass. So that was not a lie.
No, that one's true.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
20, I think it was like the 2011 Sea Otter Classic back as like a little
Oh.
junior Grom. I went with a couple of friends of mine. Grew up doing some mountain biking. It was definitely more focused on going downhill and going downhill stupid fast.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, and a bunch of us were just like, oh, let's just go to Sea Otter. It's this big show. We got a bunch of cool
Yeah.
like free stuff from all the expo, and I was like, yeah, why not do the race? So yeah, that was my
Oh
first
my
time
gosh.
racing a bike and first
Yeah.
Sea Otter way back then. So
Wow. So
yeah.
were you a mountain biker first, and
Mhm.
did you ever do like the North Star downhill stuff and Oh,
Actually, from that sea otter, I remember one of the biggest scores that me and my friends got was there was like one of those spin wheel things,
oh,
and North Star had a booth because the North Star
oh,
bike park was advertising at the expo,
yeah.
and we won like a 5 pack of lift tickets to go to the downhill park or
Oh,
something, and we
sweet.
were all like, it made the
Yeah.
whole weekend. We were all so
Oh,
pumped. So we
that's awesome.
later that summer we went up to North Star and did a day of riding at the downhill park, and
Oh,
yeah, I still
that's
remember
great.
that quite fondly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Okay, so are you not fluent in German or are you do like long mountain climbs?
I am fluent in German and I do love training on long mountain climbs. That's some of my favorite
Oh,
terrain to train on. Even though I'm not technically this like climber
mm-hmm.
build and have quite a bit of gravity to fight against when it comes to these long climbs, some of my
Yeah.
favorite rides have been just deep in the Alps or deep in the mountains of
Mm-hmm.
Colorado on these really
Mm-hmm.
long mountainous climbs. And
Wow.
as far as training goes, it's some of my favorite type of efforts and type of places to train.
And are we talking about on road or are we talking about on dirt?
Uh, Combination. I mean,
Yeah.
really, most of them are dirt. I mean, a
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
Most that I've done, but when I've been in Colorado, like Boulder, for example, you can climb for hours on some of these
Wow.
long, twisty dirt climbs, and that's also really, really fun.
Yeah. Amazing. So you went from going very fast downhill to also loving climbing up up the hill. You got to
Yeah,
go up to go down. So
yeah,
that's great. Amazing. And then where can our listeners find you, follow you, all that good stuff?
yeah. I'm on Instagram. Brennan.Wertz. It's probably the best place.
Awesome. Well, we will link that in the show notes for our listeners. We'll link his favorite Osmo products below as well, and probably all the other stuff you mentioned. I'm sure we'll grab that from you, the Orange Shield and all the good goodies for the listeners to check out. And yeah, follow Brennan, give him a follow on his journey. And thank you again so much for joining us, Brennan. This has been amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.